Hi, let's make a Phool Makhana kheer today. Phool Makhana is foxnut or puffed lotus seed, and you will find those in an ethnic store. These are rather easy, they're gluten-free, and they come in a bag, in a large bag that looks like this. So I'm going to hold it under the other camera so you can see what they are called. They're called Phool Makhana, and they look like a pre-puffed popcorn. They look like that, they're pretty large. And I've seen them in these sizes, and I've also seen them smaller. This is the one I found in the grocery store, so this is what we're using. For this kheer, we are going to use a large bowl. So this is about 2.5 cups of Phool Makhana. We're going to use some blue poppy seeds that are currently soaking in milk. We're going to have some sugar, some dried nuts, and some cardamom to give it some nice flavor. Here I have a large saucepan that is non-stick, that is my trusty saucepan. I am going to start by toasting both the Phool Makhana and the almonds. So I'm going to start with the almonds first. This is about a 1/4 cup of almonds, and you want whole almonds for this. We are going to toast them very quickly, and then we're going to grind them up. So you toast the almonds until they start giving off a lightly sweet aroma, which these are doing about now. The reason you're doing this is so that you can grind them very finely, which we're going to do in a minute, and also still keep the sweetness that's off it. A pre-toasted or a pre-made almond meal is not as sweet. It kind of loses its sweetness. So you want to do this on the day that you're going to make the preparation. These are about toasty enough. So I'm going to move these back out into the little cup. And in the same pan, I'm going to lightly roast the Phool Makhana. Now sometimes the Phool Makhana has a little bit of this black thing. This is part of the seed, so think of this as a popcorn that still has the kernel on. You want to take this off. This doesn't really soften into anything, and it'll hurt your teeth. So you want to kind of separate the two and put the other one back in and discard this. Depending on how good your stove is, this may take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes of lightly roasting it. And the Phool Makhana I'm going to show you, it kind of goes from this ivory white, from that, and it'll start having pieces that have picked up a little brown tinge, and that tells you that they're about ready for the next step. So I'm going to take these off from the heat, and while I do, I'm going to take these off from the heat, and while I wait for these to cool down a little bit, I'm going to start warming up the dairy or the milk that goes into making the kheer. This is about 2 cups, and in the same saucepan, I've added 2 cups of milk. If you're using something like almond milk, what you want to do is warm up the almond milk and add it at the very end, and cook this whole preparation in warm almond milk and use a little less of it. So that's your dairy-free alternative. But these are ready for the next step. So I'm going to pull up a little. This is my little spice mill coffee grinder thing. This one is dedicated for my spices and for anything that I'm using that's not coffee related. So I'm going to grind these almonds in my little coffee or spice grinder. And a few short pulses later, it becomes your fresh almond meal. take this out in your little cup. As you're working, be sure to watch and make sure that your milk is not scorching at the bottom, which it's starting to do because this is pretty high. Turn it down completely if it is starting to get to the top and boil over. I'm going to get this seasoned and sweetened to taste before we add the Phool Makhana. So in here, for this, I'm going to put about 4 to 5 large tablespoons of sugar. I'm going to hold off on adding any more. I'm going to take 2 of the cardamom pods that I have out, crush them very coarsely and stick them straight into the pot of milk. And by doing that, I'm essentially just opening up the pod. I'm putting in 3 of these, and the cardamom pod looks like that. What you want to do is break it up from the not so pointy edge. There are 2 parts of it. There's one that this part is pointed and it is attached to the plant. The other side is the bottom, and this is where the seeds will open up. So you want to push that down on your kitchen counter or on your chopping board and just unfold it and stick that in there. To this wonderful blend of spices and flavors, I'm adding about 4 to 5 large threads of saffron. And I'm adding these in right now so that they can unfurl, and they're already very fragrant. And you can see how they are giving off that golden color into the milk. You want to see that. I love putting the saffron in whole so that, you know, it's like getting a little piece of something special for you if you find it in your serving. All right, stirring this around. And while I'm getting ready, these are still just a little bit warm, so I'm going to get to my next bit. This is blue poppy seeds. These were soaking in milk for about 10-15 minutes, and I'm going to let them cook in here with the remaining dairy. This was about a large tablespoon worth of blue poppy seeds. So they're all gone there. These look like this has cooled off a little bit. While this is cooking, I took about as much would fit into my little mill of these toasted Phool Makhana, and I ground it up, and it has become this really wonderful flaky dust of sorts. Now what this does is it's going to thicken the kheer and make it kind of rich. So this is cutting back on the cream, and I'm going to use my little cup that I had my almonds in, and you can see it doesn't necessarily grind up to be completely even, and that's okay. And you want to do this before you get on to the next step. All right, you can see in here you've got a couple of thickening agents. Really, you've got the crushed almonds, and you have the crushed and toasted, the toasted and crushed Phool Makhana. So it's quite thick in there. I'm going to add the remaining Phool Makhana in here, and they will want to bubble up because they're very airy, so the air is trying to figure out where it wants to go. I want to keep pushing it down till they sink in, and they take on a nice, a little toasty color, and that comes from the fact that our almonds had the skin on, and when they were toasted, they were kind of this light brown color. The toasting of the Phool Makhana, the toasted Phool Makhana, also adds a little light brown color. We have some of the saffron in here that also adds a little orange yellow hue to it, so it ends up looking very light in so this ends up looking, look at the difference between the Phool Makhana that we had up here that was about this big, and the one in here that's soaked and almost looks like slightly larger peas, but they're not peas, we know that. This is already very fragrant and aromatic, and we're going to let this cook for another 5 minutes or so on very low, just so that the dairy in here thickens and as much of it that can be absorbed is absorbed into the phool makhana, and they will get nice and soft. And as a finishing touch in here, I have about 1.5 tablespoons of coarsely crushed pistachios. I'm ensuring that the kheer does not stick to the bottom by stirring it often. I also have a flat tipped spoon, which helps the case. And in here, as it's getting close to finishing, I'm adding about 1.5 tablespoons of coarsely chopped pistachio nuts. Now the pistachio meal or the pistachio nuts, these are unsalted and shelled, and you can find them in most grocery stores. And if you do, keep the bag sealed so that they don't go stale on you. Be sure you check your pistachios to make sure that they're still sweet, and go ahead and chop them up, and or you can do really fine slivers of it and whatnot, and they taste really nice in this particular preparation. Now I'm going to turn this completely down because it has thickened as much as it will thicken. And there are a couple of things in this preparation that help it thicken. One is the crushed phool makhana, the crushed almonds, and also the poppy seeds. The poppy seeds help thicken it a little bit. So this becomes a very creamy and rich dessert. And I'm going to turn the heat off completely, and while it is still bubbling, try to cool it off by stirring it, and you can see the steam kind of coming off of it. I'm doing this so that I can show you what it looks like in a served cup. This kheer is ready. It has been cooking and thickening for about 5 minutes with constant stirring, and you can tell that the phool makhana is almost kind of melted into the kheer itself. So I'm going to take this off the heat, and I have 3 little cups set up and ready to go here. This, my friends, is phool makhana kheer. I have some finely slivered pistachios on here, and I'm going to just dust some into each cup to add a little color and pizzazz to the finished dessert. Enjoy and happy Holi!